All right, all right. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday to you. It is so good to be back with y'all again. And we didn't even have to wait a couple of weeks. We back here the next week. And it's so good to see y'all. It's so good to have y'all on. So come on in. Let's get comfortable. All right. Go ahead and get settled in. While you're getting settled in, my bad. Let me turn down my phone. I'm getting some reverb. Go ahead and get settled in. Make sure that you hit the share button as you were coming in. That is your way of giving me that high five, that hug, since we social distancing and I don't want the Rona. Not saying you got it, but if you do, just go hit that share button for me. All right. Instead. So please go ahead and do that. Even tag somebody in the comments. If you put somebody's name in the comments, if you tag them, they'll get the notification and then they'll hop on. So you can even do that if you want to call the people out by their name. Because maybe you're thinking somebody needs to be on here. Somebody needs to hear this conversation. And I'm gonna just go ahead and make sure they get on here. So do what you gotta do. Send it to your group chats, send it to your friends, send it to your family, send it to the people that be out here with the microaggressions that would then come on here and get some education on tonight. Whatever you got to do, send it to somebody. And it's so good to see y'all. And while you're coming on, please make sure that you say hey, drop a quick hey in the comments for me. I would appreciate it. That way I can see who is on here with us and I can formally greet you. So let's not extend the time any with me just talking a whole lot because we didn't just come here for me. Although this is my platform, I am sharing. I am a sharer. All right. What's going on, Elias? Good to see you on here, sir. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring on this all-star cast that I have here with me. What's going on, RJ? Good to see you, sir. And we are going to get this on and popping. So y'all saw them last week. You know, they are an A1 type of people, and they need no introduction. I gave them a wonderful one last week, and I don't know if I can top that. So rather than try to fumble that, I'm gonna just bring them in. So you guys, welcome to the platform. First and foremost, we have the wonderful Miss Jasmine Robinson. Hey,
Hey
ma'am.
y'all.
We
Thanks for
have
having me back.
yes, we have Bishop Devin Tyler. All right.
Always playing. You
And
always playing.
we,
What's
we
up,
got a
everybody?
true queen in Devenia Dolls. Hey, ma'am.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hey,
So
Devin.
it's good to have
Hey,
y'all on
Devin.
here.
Hey,
Good to see
Jasmine.
y'all.
Hey,
Hey.
Raphael.
So while we're jumping into this, remember y'all go and hit that share button. Go and tag somebody on here. I see y'all coming in. Hey, Janelle, how you doing?
Hi.
Hey, Heather, how
Hey,
y'all doing?
Heather.
How you doing, man? So good to have
Hey,
you on.
Heather.
Welcome back, y'all.
Yes. Talking about Sophia. So Sophia's Janelle's niece, talking about she's confused about how I'm on the TV. Tell her I'm famous. That's all you gotta tell her. Tell her I'm famous. So y'all, let's jump into this. Last week was powerful. The discussion was wonderful, and I think we really tapped into something. I think we really embarked on a journey and a conversation that I think is needed. The people in the comments said it. You all said it, and we had to listen because during this time, I think it's taught us that when people are saying that they need something, those who have the power to give them what they need, I think we should, turn our ear to it. And attend to said need. All right. And so that's why we're back here for part two. And so we're going to kind of wrap up our discussion about being Black at a predominantly white institution. But I want to go a little further. And I want to put my whole foot, leg, thigh up to my waist in the water. And we want to go and expand that to just being Black in predominantly white spaces. Because, I have a lot of people that are going to be on here on tonight, and who are on here already, who aren't at a predominantly white institution. They live in their everyday life, walking into multiple spaces. And they're wondering, how do I handle this? Hey, Miko, good to have you on. Hey, Amy, good to see you from high school. Good to see you. Hope you well. All right, let me not get caught up in the comments. But let's just go ahead and jump right back in. And so the question that I want to start off with um, was, and I don't think we talked about this last week, and I wanted to discuss how attending a predominantly white institution, how that affected your perspective of being Black, how that shaped your identity about being Black, and how it makes sure that it added to the holistic person of who you are today, being Black. Black, 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 black. So, how did that help shape that? And what things happen that help solidify your identity as, Black woman, Black man, Black individual? So, let's go ahead and jump in on that. Devin, I'm going to ask you to start us off, and then we'll go Jasmin and then Devenia.
Yeah, sure. So you're asking how going to a PWI helped me, with
How it
my
affected
being Black.
your perspective of being Black and how it shaped your identity about being Black.
Yeah, so last week I closed by saying that I thoroughly enjoy being a Black man. And I think that a lot of the reason is because of the resilience that is built in being who I am. And that has been shaped by the fact that for 4 years, you had to learn a lot in that culture. You had to learn a lot. You had to deal with stuff that really made you develop thick skin. And so when it came to assessing who I am as an individual and who I am as a Black man, I appreciated the experience that I had because not only was it helpful just from a academic point of view, and of course you got a rich education, but it put me in scenarios where I may not have had that experience and I would not know how to navigate and I would not feel that kind of pain and I wouldn't understand how it felt to be pressured. And so now that I'm outside of the space, or I understand how to be a Black man in a predominantly white world, or I understand how to be a Black man and really use benefits that come with that, because there are a ton of benefits with being who I am in this space. And so I think that my experience as at a PWI, both the good and the bad, really helped build the skin and the thought process and the resilience that's necessary for where I am now and where I hope to be in the future.
So let me see. I'm going to approach this from the lens of a student in undergrad at SIU. So I will say that, in terms of my experience, um, I had a very rich experience at SIU. So always shout out to my Salukis that are on here. Um, we were very involved in terms of like Black culture. For example, we had our Black group, our Black organization. So Black Togetherness Organization was an organization I was a member of, and then I was a graduate assistant for. And so we were constantly talking about different elements of Black identity and constantly trying to get our student body involved in Black identity and Black culture because we were working within this microcosm, right? For those of y'all that have gone to SIU, Carbondale is like in the middle of nowhere, right, in Southern Illinois. And so we had to really foster that type of environment that welcomed our identities in the spaces. And so we had Black Togetherness Organization. We had our Black Affairs Council who worked very closely with our student government. We had our organizations, our Greek letter organizations that were showing out during my time when I was down there. We had a bunch of organizations that were created during my time. So the Naturalistas was an organization that really celebrated Black women and Black hair and Black politics. Our African American Studies department was banging and it kind of ebbed and flowed. And now they're back on the high end with everything that's happening in the world. And so I think, again, I stated this before, in a lot of ways, that experience was very, very helpful in terms of shaping who I was. But I think once I left, I realized that I was in a space of others, right? I was in a space where people accepted you, but they didn't understand you necessarily. And that usually happened when I went to the NIU and worked there for a few years. But again, even within that context, I had a great staff of folks that looked like me, had the same experiences as I did. And so really, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, even though I was in predominantly white spaces, I was able to find my community. And I think that's an issue that a lot of our students face within higher education that are in predominantly white spaces. It's getting harder and harder to find your people. And just the overall erasure of Black history in the academy is an issue. A lot of places it's always been a struggle to keep African American Studies department. It's always been a struggle. Even when we were at our institution, Dr. Dozier was on a mission to make sure that the African American studies became a major before she left, right? So just that constant struggle within these spaces, I think it's always been a thing. When I was at FIU, our department was at risk of losing our African American Studies, our Black Studies department. And now, again, because of what's happening in the world, you're seeing an increase in folks, subscribing to the major. And so I think it ebbs and flows, but I think we as a Black people, Black diaspora, we have to make sure that we're understanding and taking charge of our own history, because we can't wait on these folks in these predominantly white spaces to do that, because they either don't know, they don't care, or they're waiting. So that's how I feel about that topic.
Devenia?
I was making sure I wasn't gonna sneeze before I unmuted my mic. I think that Jasmine touched on something that fits for me very well. It's really where I found my community, and where I made some of my best friends. And being in those spaces in a way that it kind of has impacted me now is that my understanding of a white space is much better. And and to be very frank, my understanding of like wealthy white spaces is better, which shares you a lot about non-wealthy or middle income, and we know that the middle class is pretty much non-existent at this point. But it tells you more about those spaces. It also instilled in me a lack of conformity in any way. And it's like once I left Lake Forest, once I got there, I might have been code switching, but I pulled out of that. I no longer want to compensate you or make you feel better. So I no longer have that, ooh, or worrying about being that whoever you think I am. I am who I am. However, what it also puts you in the space of is that it allows you to see yourself even more, and it allowed me to dig deeper and hold on to the things that my grandmother has taught me, my mother taught me, my father told me, my brother shared with me, my aunts and my uncles. Because in those spaces, you gotta hold on. You gotta hold on to your truth. You gotta hold on to yourself. You gotta hold on to your culture, and in different ways, of course, as it pertains to different religions and beliefs. You gotta hold on to your Bible. You have to really submit, pardon me, yourself in those spaces. So it's definitely challenging, especially if you're the only one, and especially if you're a woman. As I discussed last week, with Black women being the bottom of society's totem pole, it's beneficial for you to get me and Jasmine's perspective because it might be a little different. But those spaces gave me the confidence that I needed, but they also turned me off from different people who also weren't white, and just put things into a greater perspective on how everybody might act in white spaces, including white people. So I'm always grateful for a learning lesson. Always.
Beautiful, beautiful. And y'all are really opening this thing up tonight. If I'll just throw in there real quick, going to a predominantly white institution, it helped a lot, but not because it was a predominantly white institution. Because I grew up in a lot of predominantly white spaces. I grew up in the suburbs, where in my fifth grade class, I think I was I think it was maybe me and one other black guy. So I'm used to being like in the minority wherever whatever space I walk into. And so being at Lake Forest though, it caused me to lean on those spaces where there were black people. It caused me to lean on those spaces more and really caused me to explore my identity. And the African American Studies department helped me learn more about my history and different things like that, helped me to become more connected with who I am as a black person, different things like that. And then kind of contrasting that against the environment that I'm in, I had to it was teaching ground, it was training ground, and I had to learn how to navigate in a different way than how I did before then. It opened my eyes to a lot of the microaggression that I experienced before I got to college, where I just thought this was things that people did. And then you get and you in class and you're like, wait, that's a microaggression. Wait, that's bigotry. Wait, that's racism. And then the light bulbs start going off, and you're like, man, oh man, we just been surviving out here, not even knowing it. So I think that's what going to a predominantly white institution did for me specifically. But I appreciate your comments on that question, and I think that was a good way to open us up and kind of bring us to our almost transition point. Now, Devenia, you said something while you were talking, and it sparked a question in my mind, because you were talking about how what your grandmother taught you, what your parents taught you, what different family members taught you. Is there anything that you all on this screen, and even y'all in the comments, that your parents or family members told you before going to college, knowing that you were going to a predominantly white institution? Because part of that is, before you even step foot on there, they already trying to pour into you and prepare you and get you ready. So I want y'all to jump in and give a little insight on that. Just give us a little peek in there. Go ahead, Devin.
I would love. Come, you see me. I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty.
Thirsty.
I would love to give if my stepfather is watching, Darnell, I love you. My stepfather said something to me, and he's a very intense man, and I'm intense, and I love him for it. He said to me, he said, "Don't let racism catch you off guard, and let's break that now." He was like, "Do not let racism put you on your butt. Don't be just so, I can't believe that this is happening, that you are just stuck in that moment where you don't think it's a reality." And I always appreciated that, because when I would call him from school and tell him about stuff, he would be like, "Remember what I told you. Remember what I told you." But he told me that in high school and reminded me of that in college. Just don't let racism, don't let it catch you off guard, because it's real, it's alive, it's very generational. It's very generational. And if we have, because I think that people think that racism is like the old white man or the old white lady sitting on a porch, or the videos that we see in our history classes, the white people at lynchings, which is still some of the wildest things that I've ever seen. I think we think that that's that. But racism was some college boys standing at that statue with torches in their hand. That's racism. That's our age. That's younger than us. So I don't. He made sure that I didn't think it was just this 400-year ago thing, and that I would just be so overwhelmed that I would miss the point. And if you are prepared, they say proper preparation prevents piss poor performance, and that's what he was saying. And he threw the piss poor in there. And I stuck with that, and I believe that, and it's always been a thing, especially as a woman working in customer service and etc. When people would say stuff to me, and white men especially, I would be like, you know what? I already saw that coming, and you're not gonna knock me off my square, but you are gonna be done talking to me. That's what we are gonna do.
All right,
for sure.
A word. As you say, she always sipping on something and she say something. Oh Lord.
It's a little tea and it's a little shady.
Always got her too, Jesus.
Go ahead, Devin and Jasmin, whichever one want to jump in.
I can jump in. I mean, so the main thing my family told me was, don't forget where you came from. So born and raised in St. Louis, also by way of East St. And first and foremost, we got your back. My dad used to say it all the time, we got your back. And so for me, we have a small but mighty family, and just going into every space that I've been in, that's been something that's been very important to me. So cultivating relationships that turn into, family, this space right now, this family, you know what I'm saying? And so family takes care of each other. And we don't complain about it, we just get it done. We want to complain about it later and laugh at it, right? But that was the main thing that I learned growing up, is like, don't forget where you came from, and we got your back. And I think, unfortunately, I was I grew up in a lot of predominantly white spaces, and so college was the first time I really understood the magnitude of blackness, the magnitude of black identity. And it was showing up through my social networks, right? And so I was like, man, this is something new. I'm not really used to this. The school that I went to in high school, predominantly white area. I lost a lot of friends because I would say, you talk white, talk this, you know. So there was some other anti-blackness stuff happening that we'll get into later. And so I was learning a lot as I was going through college, but really once I got into the professional realm, that I understand kind of what it meant to be Black and what it meant to see a lot of this anti-Blackness happening. And so, you know, I was like, dude, I got to fortify myself. I got to make sure I got people who have my back. And so as I've navigated through different spaces, when I don't see the representation, I make sure that I have that in other spaces. So case in point, real quick, without, you know, going too far into it, you know, I'm in a space now where, you know, it's not a lot of us there, but there are some. And so I'm texting, calling, messaging, emailing, finding ways for us to connect, even through COVID. You know, just last night, I was connecting with some of my former colleagues to celebrate a birthday and just reminding myself that, you know, we are here. We're not going anywhere. We are excellent. You know, we are kings and queens. You have to do that sometimes. Sometimes you got to be in these, you got to find spaces because a lot of these spaces we're in now are not necessarily created for us. So I'm also of sound mind, like, you asked me to be here, I ain't going nowhere till I'm ready. So get ready. If you don't like what I have to say, let's figure out how to help you deal with that, you know, because you know, the thing when it comes to Black identity, and I said this last week, I think they want our rhythm, but not our blues in a sense. And so just thinking about where we are as a culture, we're already at the bottom, right? And so as long as we're exploited, it benefits folks. But as soon as we start, you know, trying to share our issues and our circumstances and try to seek out help, it's like, oh, well, we want to talk about everybody. Or, oh, we want to make sure that all voices are heard. You know, and so I got a problem with that. And again, within my role, we'll get to that later. I find ways to expose some of those gaps, and I find ways to challenge some of those spaces. And so, yeah, you know, long story short, don't forget where you came from. And to Devenia's point earlier too, you know, I think that code switching is very real, right? And I also think too, I try to show up as authentic as possible. And some days I'm with it. Some days I feel like giving you a little bit of twang, a little bit of jazz. And some days I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And so depending on how I feel, that's what you're going to get. And sometimes that is in the boardroom, and sometimes that is in the classroom, or sometimes it's in my office. So I feel like wherever I am, whatever day that is, I'm showing up as authentic as possible. And I had to think about that and do my own work in education to realize that, you know, I was doing too much of one thing and really losing who I was as a whole. And so I really worked towards being that authentic person, and it has served me very well. And it continues to serve me well. So I just want to kind of point that out too. I think that authenticness is something that's very important in terms of your identity, because again, getting back to that erasure, people intentionally or unintentionally will try to really diminish who you are, particularly as a Black person.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Good stuff. Devin, did you have anything on that?
I mean, I share the same kind of advice that Devenia and Jasmin received from my family. It was plain and simple. Don't be shocked, but be yourself. So they told me, don't be shocked by what you see. Don't be shocked by the experiences that you have as a Black man. And this was a conversation I had before I started high school, because I went to a more diverse high school than my middle school experience. And so don't be shocked by that. And when you get into my college experience, don't be shocked by what people will say and the microaggressions that you'll experience, and the shock that other people will have about you. And you know, oh wow, you must come from a tough background. Don't be shocked when people say stupid stuff like that. Don't be shocked when people challenge your way of thinking or don't seem to understand. Don't be shocked when people show their bigotry and their just inability to reason. Don't be shocked by that stuff. Just be you. Be your authentic self, like Jasmine mentioned. I have learned quickly in spaces where it's just you have to be yourself, because wearing someone else's mask, or wearing a mask to fit in, or wearing a mask, it's just tiresome and sweaty. You come back at the end of the day just exhausted because you weren't who you were. You tried to fit into spaces that weren't designed for you. You try to, blend into the crowd, hide behind the shadows, act like you're a part of the numbers, when in reality you're just screaming, begging to come out, because you're not designed to be in that. And so your inner person is saying, this feels uncomfortable. It's like wearing a shoe that does not fit. And so that kind of feedback of don't be shocked, but be yourself, really helped carry me through all the spaces that I've been in.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And you said something there, Devin. I'm gonna get to that later though. But the wearing masks in different places and trying to navigate and be authentic, we gonna touch on that, because that's as we flip over to the other side. But what I wanted to do is, because we us as black people, we all black on the screen right now. When we talk and when we say things, we state it as fact because we have lived it. But I think one of the good things about last week was actual stories and experiences that we told the people, where I think the light bulbs started to go off in people's head, like, oh, this is something that people really, really experiencing. Okay. And one of the things that I want to talk about that we kind of hinted at last week, and I don't know if we really stepped all the way into it, and then we're going to switch over to the workplace, was the election of Donald Trump when he was elected president in 2016. And I kind of want all of us to kind of talk about that night. It was an emotional night. Some people excited, some people not excited. Depending on where you fall in there. But from us as black people, where we stood and how we processed through that, I kind of want you guys to talk about that, because I really need people to understand and see, when events happen in the world, the way we process and look at it is totally different from how other people process and look at it. And in a world where social media gives you the ability to see how people really look and think about things, some of the stuff I see is crazy. I'm like, oh, so you just really think that this is okay, or you really think that you could just be, nonchalant out here? But I'll take a pause there and allow y'all to jump in. So, Jasmine, I want you to start first, because at that time you were a staff member, trying
Yeah.
to be there to support students. So I want you to start us off with the conversation.
Okay. So, man, like I said, it's eerie. I feel like we kind of up upon that same type of monumental moment again in history. But um, I think one word that I can use to describe that day was just devastation. I think, I had, first of all, I remember that night, my husband and I were sitting there, we were up in Waukegan, and we were like, they just got this man in the office. And we legit just laid on the floor, stuck, like, oh, dude, this is real. And it's interesting because I think it was like it was a Simpsons show a few years ago. And then I watched Bones, and they've been joking around, Trump talking about he gonna run for office, 45, I call him Trump 45, gonna run for office and all this other stuff, kikiing and making it a joke. And then here we are sitting on the floor, stuck, because we now had this dude in office. And so to me, I feel like it was kind of the beginning of the end in terms of this political correctness, and in terms of these niceties that you see around the conversation around race. And so that day, I remember specifically, because I think there were some folks that are on here now that came into my office, and I made sure I had snacks, and I think we try to keep coffee up there. People just came in on the couch, the infamous couch, y'all. Everybody who's been at LFC know about the couch. Everybody who's come in there was like the therapy space, right?
Exactly.
And it was just all kind of emotions. I had tissue ready to go. People were pissed. People were scared. People were angry. There was a lot of our students who had undocumented families that were worried, because there was a lot of conversation around immigration reform. And so it was devastating. It was devastating. And I think, if nothing else, it exposed the fact that we are not in a post-racial society. And so a lot of things started snowballing after that. And I think for me, it was a point in my life where I'm like, do I even want to do this anymore with this man in the office? And so I had to just figure out, what my next steps were going to be. And so just even getting back to, the community piece, how can I make sure I'm supporting my students, and how can I make sure that I'm taking care of myself? And then once I'm ready to kind of step back into the light, what does that look like? And to be honest, it was challenging in some ways because I was the only diversity officer. These smaller schools, you're often the only one doing diversity work. And so that presented some challenges in and of itself. Luckily, I had some additional folks in that space that were helpful, but there were some folks that were not, and so just trying to navigate the politics of work, and then trying to navigate our students and the impact that it had on them once Drunk 45 got in office. It was a lot to take in. And so I had to really take some time for myself. Like, I was praying a lot more. I was journaling. I was trying to work out more. I was trying to compartmentalize as much as possible, and so when I would go home, I'd make sure that nothing was connected to work. And then when I went to work, I made sure that my phone wasn't on, except for when I had to, touch base with some of my other, faculty and staff allies. And so it was hard. And I think, again, just kind of thinking about where we are now, I'm in a better place and space to manage whatever comes next after November, but it was horrible. That is the best way I can describe it. And it was just a very solemn campus. And it wasn't just the Black students. It wasn't just Black people. There was a lot of us on the campus that were just devastated. I had a lot of people coming from my office just devastated, crying, upset, angry. And so it took a while to kind of shake it off and try to move forward, to be honest. So I think that was my emotion. But yeah, I will never forget. Mark was sitting in there and he was just like laid out, and I'm just like, I think I need some adult beverage at this moment right now, and I probably need to make sure I monitor how much I consume because it can get bad real quick. So yeah, that's just kind of where it was. And then I went into the office and was just like, all right, if the tears flow, let them flow for me. So.
All right, Devenia.
This is such a great question, and I'm looking forward to part 3 of this. I will have to leave short, which I know I told Raphael, and I love y'all. And
Go ahead, get in the game.
Okay, the mic thing. Sorry about that. For me, when I found out, it was, I mean, Jasmin hit the nail on the head when she said devastating. And the thing about it, Raphael, you said it, where you said, Black people, we speak in fact because we have lived it. We saw that and we were like, oh no. And the thing is that here we are once again in another election. And Ralph, thanks for commenting on that, because I remember that moment where it was like someone like Forrest was like, oh my gosh, our president, and everybody else was like, so who's getting their passports to move to Canada? Still working on that, by the way. Let's get a group. But for me, because I'm serious,
I'm gonna have to unmute so I can laugh.
No, for me, it was devastating, and it was the energy and the spirit around it was just ugly and horrifying. And like we talked about last time, what was the little app where people used to be trying to be anonymous and be funny? What was the name of that?
Yik Yak.
Yik Yak.
Thanks, y'all. Oh, hey, come on, Yickety Yak. Right on. Let me be quiet. So, Yik Yak, when that happened and all of that happened, like I told you all last time, it was terrifying for us to not know who was on Yik Yak saying what, because it didn't mean that they were just in the neighborhood. They could have been our neighbors. And you know what? It for me, because I come from the family I come from, it took me a while, but then I adjusted it and I said, you know what? I want to know who the Trump supporters are. I want the people who have been in the Klan to come out of their basement with their hoods on. You've been wanting to come outside anyway, and now you got somebody that's going to endorse you. I want to see who you are because this is the time to get your house in order. Raphael, you know what I mean. It's the time to
Mm-hmm.
get your house in order. And the thing is that I want to get my house in order with the proper gas. And the thing is that I don't want to associate with anybody, whether or not they're looking at it for money, whether or not they're looking at it for their own political gain. I don't want to associate with anybody that would allow someone to even condone children being in cages, to
Mm.
even condone sexual assault and sexual harassment and horrific language towards women, to even condone questioning a black man on his legal status,
Mm-hmm.
who would even go so far as to repeal health care that was helping people. I don't want to be with I don't want to be around those people. And the thing is that I want to know who y'all are. I want to see your Trump sticker on your desk. I do. Because then I want you to know I'm not for it. And the other hard part about it is that once again, like I said, we're in an election where neither one of our candidates are the best. Neither one of our candidates are the best. Hillary, we remember what you said. We
Mm.
remember what you said.
Hmm.
We remember what
Hmm.
you said about black people and how dangerous. We remember that. Biden, we remember what you did
Mm-hmm.
and what you signed off on and didn't sign off on. And and respectfully, and to the white people listening, to the brown folk listening, to the black people that might condone it, and I hope you do see that. Take from Biden that you need to stop riding. I got a black friend card.
Mm.
Stop that. Stop that.
The
Stop.
ultimate
Stop talking.
microaggression. I'm
It's
not
such a
racist.
microaggression where it's like, well, Obama and Biden, don't you ever get so beyond yourself where you go, you're not black if you don't vote for me. One, you watch your mouth. And
Mm.
then
Mm-hmm.
two, how dare you even come from a position to ride on the back of a black president who had his own flaws. We remember the drones. Let's not get into it. But
Hmm.
I don't have time for it. So take that in and stop doing that. Hey Austin, take that in and stop doing that. But it was a rough time because you could those first few weeks you could see the arrogance riding on white folk.
Yeah.
It was almost as if they had capes on. It was like a heat wave. It was like
Mm-hmm.
they were glowing in this improperness. So that's my take on it because it was minimizing, but it was a beautiful thing because black and brown folk, and I'm gonna just say black folk, we rallied like we had never.
Yeah.
We
We were
definitely
at each
rallied.
other's houses. How many times somebody fixed you a plate when they found out Trump? What did Jasmine just say? I made sure I had snacks. I made sure I had water. I made sure this. I made sure that. We became the tribe all over again, even deeper. There was a
Mm-hmm.
threat now, and bring the kids close and get the elders in and get the youth out of the forest. Let's come home for a bit. So I'm very grateful for that. That's about it.
All
Total
right, Devin,
pain.
jump in there. Jump in there, Devin.
I mean, again, they've said it and summarized it in such a clean and
Exactly.
crisp way, but like, yeah, I said earlier, nothing should shock you. And I certainly was prepared for the worst scenario. And I mean, everybody who was at Lake Forest at the time, we all know how it felt. We all understood. And what was so hurtful to me was, you know, listening to people who didn't agree. And there's one thing, I don't have to agree with you politically. I don't have to always agree with you about social things. We don't always have to see eye to eye about religious things. I'm fine with having a healthy debate and conversation, but certain things are considered table stakes to me. Things that Devenia talked about were table stakes to me. Some of the like how can we call all Mexicans looters, they're rapists, they're liars? That's not something that I'm going to debate you about. That's just no, we don't do that. And so having people sign off on a man because they agreed less with
On one
Hillary.
thing.
Yes, or
Child.
because she is so bad for us, so I gotta agree with this man who has shown us that he has no respect, no character, no judgment, no qualifications to lead the role, and we were just gonna run with him. And so, I mean, honestly, my heart sank. I told you all last week, two times I ever cried, Mike Brown and that, where it was just, all the hope had been exhausted from that campus in particular, because we already are a small group. You factor in brown population, those who just did not vote for Trump or did not want to see him in office, we were still technically a minority amongst folks who were quietly supporting, quietly excited, verbally, and came out and was like, "Yeah, I am super excited." And Devenia mentioned it, and we talked about it last week. That was another time where we did not feel safe on campus, where we were rallying, holding each other accountable, making sure that everybody got home safely, and we were walking with each other, and we were just so scared. And you never think that a presidential election could have you that rattled,
Mm.
where you're afraid for your life. We were literally afraid for our lives because of what we were seeing on Yik Yak, from what we were hearing when we were passing by, from the people that you thought were your friends, people who you thought made sense and were at least conscious, had a conscious. And all of a sudden, they started saying stuff that did not align to just normal human decency. We got scared. We were nervous. We were frightened. It was frustrating. And again, one of the best things that came out of that was the bond that we built and the resilience that we had to just take on as a culture and a community, because we had to grow from that. Otherwise, we were going to sink. We were going to die. We were going to be just swallowed by our emotions. And we're not about that life. One thing that you'll learn is that we are literally not built for that. Our ancestors would roll over in their graves if they knew that we would let this situation get the best of us. And so the bright end of that was that we rallied and we rallied strong.
Mm.
Yep. That's what it was, y'all. But the fear, I can remember the fear, Devin. Definitely the fear, because I remember I was off campus like for most of the evening. Down doing my church duties at rehearsal. And I can remember coming back up to the campus and literally stepping onto the campus, and I could feel the shift.
Mm.
I could feel the change in the energy. Um, and I knew that it was bad. Walking through the student center and seeing people like you said, Devini, with that glow on their face because of it, and seeing other people in horror. I even went with a group of people off campus just to get something to eat, just to say, let's just get off campus for a second, let's detach, and let's just go somewhere, get something to eat, and come back. Just because it was that bad. You had people screaming throughout the campus, talking about, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. And then, you had people saying, get them out, kick them out, talking about Hispanic students, immigrants, talking about kicking the, like, you're hearing this, hearing it
Yep.
with your own two ears that the Lord gave you.
Driving up
And
and
it,
down the street talking about
yes,
build the wall. Oh my
exactly.
gosh.
And that was the
Yeah.
worst. To build the wall, that was like such a haunting comment. It
Mm-hmm.
was just like, if y'all would do this to Mexicans, y'all would. First off, we know what y'all would. Latinos, we know what y'all would do to us, but build the wall,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. It was. So, and I mean, I say all this and I brought that up just to let people know that when critical things happen in our country, when things happen in our society, I just want people to realize, and I want them to understand that you have to think outside of yourself. And I'm talking especially
Mm.
to white people in this moment, because there's an extra added layer of processing that has to happen, because we not only view the world as human beings, we then have to view it as black human beings. And when I tell you, that takes on a lot of different thoughts, that takes on a lot of different emotions. I mean, even thinking about it now, I'm getting a little emotional, because the stress and the heaviness that comes on as a weight that some people will not understand or get or grasp. And I'm not saying that, you have to get it right now, but what I do need you to know is that I'm feeling it. And you don't get to dictate the fact that
Mm.
I'm feeling it, or tell me that it's going to be okay, or that, we'll get past this and different things like that. No, just accept the fact that I'm feeling it, and understand that how we have to go through it is different.
Mhm.
And so I just really wanted to, kind of shine that light there for a moment. But I kind of want to shift a little bit to the workplace, because a lot of people said that, how how do we navigate if you're not in college and you just out here, just out here. Lord have mercy. Oh. So I
Oh
kind of
my
want to talk
It's
gosh.
about that
different.
because a lot of people are living that right now,
Yeah, talk
especially
about
with
it.
COVID, with George Floyd,
Yes.
with Breonna Taylor, and so many other names. It has been a lot for a Black person to be out here in these streets during this time. 2020, what a year. So what I want to talk about first is how have you all um how have you all been navigating during this time, being now in the workplace? We talked about our experiences in college. Now we're in the workplace. We have these things that are happening. We see now that corporations, companies, organizations are now really getting behind Black Lives Matter. They're talking about, we hear the struggle. We want to contribute, offer our resources. What can we do? How has that been navigating that? Because most times when things like that happen, when things like this come about, companies then want to hear the voice of the marginalized. And
Mm.
those who are in the minority, their voice now becomes the majority. So talk about that. Help the people understand what that is like. So Devenia, look like you want to jump in there real quick.
I want to jump in there real quick because, like I said, I got to head
Yeah.
out.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. So do that
Devin,
and then you can jump
Jasmine,
out.
and
Mhm.
Raphael, it's the deepest pleasure. I said my prayers and I thank God for these moments.
Mhm.
Um, it's been interesting. Because the thing is that you'll encounter some people, even beyond this very necessary time that we've been in. You'll encounter some people that won't acknowledge it at all because they're like, I don't want to make it awkward. You probably heard that to me. I don't want to say nothing. And then you got the people that are overcompensating. One of my best friends, her and another Black woman she works with at work, the job sent them flowers, only them. And was like, hey, we want to reach out during this time. And she was like, interesting. Because the thing is that what the reaction that we're seeing now is almost as if white people are like, oh, we are, oh God, not my company. Ow, chew a nail. White people are willing to chew a jean jacket
Devenia.
before they admit
Shook it.
racism. And
Oh,
I'm like,
Oh
not you
gosh.
not having anybody Black in any powerful position at the top. How do you have diversity and not have a Black or brown person at all? Um, and so with that, it's been interesting seeing and experiencing in different ways because, like, I'm disappointed in the white people that don't say anything, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm disappointed in the white people that feel like they're overcompensating, and it seems like they're overcompensating now. And
Come out of
oh,
there, devil. We want to hear what she got to say.
she was on the road too.
She was. Oh Lord.
No.
All right, Devin and Jasmine, jump in there real quick until she come back.
Oh wait.
Okay,
Oh,
there
there
You
she
she
is.
need,
is.
yeah.
Oh, somebody praise God in the comments because she came back. Where is
Oh,
she?
Oh
is she
wow.
back?
There you
There
go.
we go.
You was about to
listen,
go in.
I'm here.
You was
Sorry
about
about
to
that. I got a
go
random
in.
call.
Oh, okay.
But listen, period. Because I'm going in. My thing is, I don't like it either way. And also, white people, I'm not that Black person that has advice for you. Because once again, since I fed your children from my nipple, you need me to further walk you through, guide you through, provide you the answers, and make it easier for you. I'm not making it easier for you in a position that you're in. And that's why I love Jasmine being like, whatever you gonna get from me is what you're gonna get from me when I'm in the mood.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond this time, Black people, what I will say is that our culture is a sensitive one, and our culture is a cautious one.
Hmm.
If you feel like you're at work, and I mean this, if you feel like you're at work or in a white professional space, especially, and you feel like there's been a jab, you feel like somebody's made a poke, you feel like there's some shade or some microaggressions in that, it is. Follow your gut. Follow your gut. Name one time that you confronted a bully and the bully went, I bullied you. It's not going to happen. So, of course, it's going to be like, oh, Raphael, I would never want to make you feel that way. And it's like, but the thing is that would you talk to your friend that way?
Mm-hmm.
Would you have said that same sentence with that same body language, with that same tone? Black people, we are not delusional. We are not off of our rockers. We are not overreacting. We are not being dramatic. We are not overly sensitive. No. Disrespect is disrespect. Minimization is minimization. And I think that the better that we get at that, the more things will be better for the other one black person in the office. People joke all the time where somebody made a joke once. They said, somebody at my office asked me, oh, I didn't know that your hair could grow that long. And I turned and asked her, do you want these copies or you want to go to HR? Take these people to the same court that they would take you. And in all due respect to my Most High, take them to the cross and nail them. Because the thing is that you are not irrational, and society has told us that if we respond, we're overdoing it. No, you're not.
Yeah,
You
agreed.
know in your gut when somebody is insulting you. You know in your gut when somebody is being disrespectful. Follow it and take it all the way. And don't wait. Don't wait. I want you to know that I'm not that black person. I'm not that Negro. I'm not any of that. I will take you where you belong. I would take you to the same system that you created to uphold. Let's go on up to HR. You could tell them how you like how kinky I am and how kinky my hair is. I want you to say that in front of HR because I want you to see how it sounds now. Don't minimize black folk. Take it to the book, because the thing is that the best way to play somebody's game is to play by the rules that they said and show them that you are better. I'm not that person. I'm not that person. And as I said, and I'm going to say one more time and I'm going to head out. White people, do your research. Y'all ask Siri for everything in the world. Everybody with these smartphones, y'all ask Siri and your AI technology for everything in the world. Ask them for suggestions. Ask them where Ta-Nehisi Coates' book is. Ask them for the new Jim Crow. Ask your Siri for where you can educate yourself. But stop asking your black friends, stop asking your black coworkers, and stop asking your black lovers. Unless you're that close and you need some advice, but stop with the, I don't know, and oh my gosh. Baby, that privilege ain't that delusional, and neither are you. Pull it together and stop playing with us.
Wow.
And to my black folk out there, it's an amazing day to be black. It's another amazing day to the black women out there. To the black men out there, it's another amazing day to be a black man. To my brown people, we stand with y'all. To that black woman that just shouted out ICE for those involuntary, all of that. I'm here. I love y'all. Raphael, I'm looking forward to part 3. Yes, I now think that you have made me into a celebrity. And I'm looking forward to that. And I love y'all. Y'all be good. Y'all be sharp.
People love you.
And don't be surprised by white people. Don't. And not even just white people. Don't be surprised by racism.
Yeah.
RJ wants part 3. I love you, RJ. I love y'all so much. Have an amazing night. And I look forward to the rest.
See you, honey.
I love.
Okay. All right. Jasmin, jump in right. Oh, hold on. I think you want to say something. Oh, never mind. Okay, Jasmin, go ahead. Jump in right there.
How do you follow after that?
Yeah, I know. She's something else. Man.
What was the question again?
The question was, how have we been navigating in our different spaces, predominantly white spaces?
Correct.
Everything that's been going on, whether it's COVID, companies turning themselves toward being more diverse, all of that.
Yes. So, man, good question. In terms of the authenticity, when it comes to expressing yourself, if I feel like let me say this, if I feel like I'm wrong, I will admit it. I will admit wrongdoing. I will apologize. But I've also realized that in the role that I'm in as a diversity educator, in predominantly white spaces, My job is to amplify those voices that don't have a space at the table. And in the wake of 2020, that has gotten louder. And so I find myself in multiple spaces, whether it's senior leadership, whether it's, my peers, whether it's working with students. And so if I see something and I have the energy, that's the other piece too. There's so much stuff that happens. We have to even give ourselves permission to show up if we feel like it.
Yeah,
And to be quite honest, okay. And so to be quite honest, there's some days I just don't feel like checking what do y'all call them, the Beckys and Karens or whatever. I don't feel like doing all that. It's some days I don't feel like checking my brother or sister, right? And if people ask, well, how you feeling? I'm gonna tell you. You're either gonna do something about it or you're gonna stop asking me. Okay. And so I think for me, it's gotten to a point, in some ways, it's been self-preservation. I think the last straw that I had was when oh goodness, so many names, even before Jacob Blake. Man, I can't remember whose name was in front of me this morning. But I ended up having a meeting with some administrators, and they were asking for help. And I was like, I'm not here to help you anymore. I'm not here. I don't have it in me. And if you ask me to help you, my answer is you better Google it.
Wow.
Because when I've been trying to do that, it's fallen on deaf ears. You've tried to minimize my experience. You've tried to belittle me. You tried to, position me in a way that I'm the angry Black woman. And I graciously accept that. If you feel like I'm angry, boo, go with God. Figure it out on your own, because I'm not going to reduce who I am to make you feel comfortable. That's dead. That's done. That's over. And I think in 2020, it's becoming more apparent how done and over it is. So if you want me to be in this space, understand it's not to be in this space at the advantage of you and your whiteness. Okay. If you want me to be in this space, you need to be prepared to do the work. And so I also talk about the role that, my peers have played, whether they are a part of a racial minoritized group, whether they are a part of one of these dominant or white groups. And so it is varied in terms of how I responded. But to be honest, if you're not my people in this moment right now, you're not the priority. Because again, y'all never made us the priority. You never made us a priority until everybody else was on the boat. I got so many folks coming at me right now talking about, oh, Jasmin, you look at this job, I've seen so many different things out here now. Everybody's on a diversity train. I want to see what y'all gonna do when this wave for all these folks in these dominant groups kind of passes. What is your organization going to do for me and my people, for me and these minoritized voices, for my brown folk, for my differently able folk, for my LGBT folk? What are you gonna do for my trans folk? What are you gonna do for us when this wave subsides? That's gonna determine how I show up for you. But until then, check me in the back in the margins. Okay, everybody, well, how can I help? You step into the margins and you do the work for me, because I'm tired. And so I think for me, it's become a part of self-preservation. I have had a lot of people just come and check in with me. And to be honest, those folks have always come and check in on me. So I receive that. But all these fair weather folks that come in every now and then, or you want to, talk to me on the side, but then you gloating about some big idea or some big event that's happened in your space or on your campus, but then you want to message me or email me to the side or call me to the side, save it. Because you're fake, you're phony, and I don't need it. Okay. And I think that's the other piece too. When I'm in these spaces, if you're asking me a question, you better be prepared for the answer. Don't ask me, because I'm going to give it to you. And I've been consistent with that message. I think that is one thing I would say about me in terms of me being authentic. I've been like that since I was younger. Used to get me in trouble, and I own it. I used to do it in high school. I used to do it in college, and I do it now. And I think that's been consistent, and it will continue to be consistent. And I will probably get even louder. The more I know, the more I grow, and the more I'm going to be holding folks accountable. Right. And so I think that is a big piece. However, people don't change, in my opinion. They evolve into who they, are destined to be. And so for me, I see the journey that I'm going down, and I think it's remarkable and it's very challenging. I'm still learning who I am in these moments, but I know for sure I'm almost cursed. For sure. Hope my mom and dad don't
Won't,
hear
won't,
that. Hello,
won't he
thirsty.
hold your mouth? Won't he hold your
Okay.
mouth?
Won't he do
Mm.
it? But yes, what I do know is that I'm not apologizing for being in this space because I should have been here in the first place, just like every other person, And so, to my Black folks, to my brown folks, to my folks that are on the margins, minoritized. I don't like saying minority because that to me that's a deficit. I'm not a minority. This was done to me. This is a part of a system that has put me in this space, that subordinated me and my people, right? And so I stand with them. And I will call out folks that are in these spaces that talk about doing this work, but they don't put their money and their resources where their mouth is. Oh, we have this campaign or this effort, or we have this statement. I have seen so many freaking statements out here. What is your statement means nothing to me. Where are the resources? If you want to know what people are doing, check the money.
Yep.
Check the receipts.
Yep.
That'll tell you where folks are really putting their money or divesting. Okay, let's be clear. So I think for me, it's like, I don't have time for all that. If you're not doing anything or if you're not supporting the work that I'm doing, get the heck out of my way. And that's how I feel about it. So
Amen.
Another long response, but I think for me, it is what it is. And again, I will say, I have my colleagues, I have my peers, I have my students. I love my students. Every institution I've been at, I've always found some connection to my students. Y'all in my heart, y'all are the reason why I'm in the work that I'm in. And so that has been my saving grace, and I try to approach it from, hey, T-Dub, that's my best friend, y'all. Tasha, check her out, realtalktasha.com, shameless plug. But yes, that's my girl T-Dub from the Lou. Okay. But yes, thanks for joining us, y'all. So, I think, at the end of the day, if you're not going to do the work, go ahead, step to the side and let me continue to do what I need to do. So that's where I'm at with that.
Man, oh man. Devin, what you got for us?
I mean, you can't keep putting me last in these conversations.
Right, you gotta let him go first.
I'm sorry.
You drop knowledge too, Devin. No, let's be clear.
Yeah.
But I mean, I echo what they're saying in so many ways because it's amazing how you see the progression of people's concern as things become top of mind. And I really believe that it is literally out of sight, out of mind. So if you don't see it, if it's not showing up in your own space, you don't care about it. You were never concerned about it. But the minute it starts to affect you, that's when you get that, okay, maybe I should reach out. Okay, maybe I should ask. And what we talked about last week was that I can tell when somebody is authentic and not authentic. I can tell when you want to learn something or if you're just trying to relax your white guilt. And in which, if you're doing the latter, please skip past my name when you're going down your contact list because I'm not here for that. I've never been here for that. But what hurts, what hurts is it took all of this for you to realize that some of like everything that we talk about, our experiences are real. And yeah, we're not the ones that have gotten shot, thankfully. We're not the ones that aren't laying in our graves, but we have experienced just enough so that when we say something is happening or when we experience things differently, it should not take the point of somebody else dying for you to listen to us. It shouldn't take the point of for it to be a trend now for you to ask me how I feel in the workplace because I could have told you a long time ago. And one thing that I have a hard time with, and I had a hard time with, is the fact that when you're not in the majority and in a predominantly white space, you're forced to adapt to that culture. You're forced to learn that culture. You're forced to do everything that you can, particularly when you're talking about in a workplace, where my goal isn't necessarily to make friends or to be your buddy. My goal is that paycheck every 2 weeks. And so what I do is I'm going to make sure that I do my job so that I can get that money every 2 weeks. And part of my job now has to be understanding your culture so that I don't get left out of important conversations or understanding your culture so that I don't feel uncomfortable and not invited to the backdoor conversations about the business. So, I didn't grow up with golf on the TV and I don't know anything about caviar. I didn't grow up in spaces like that. And what I have to do is learn that. I have to learn what it means. I have to learn different cultures so that I can stay relevant in that space. And
Mhm.
what frustrated me was that, yeah, I have to learn, and I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to grow, and that's what you have to do in these spaces. But in spaces where you think that you have a real community, shouldn't it be reciprocated? Shouldn't
Mm.
you want to learn about my experience? And it should not be a catalyst. It shouldn't have a catalyst for you to ask me questions about my experience. And it shouldn't be a catalyst for you to say, okay, clearly you're not in the conversation that we're having right now. So tell me about your experiences or your background. I would love to learn more about you. For years, it's felt like you have to learn so much about others and they don't care about your experience. Like, I don't know golf. I don't know racquetball. What I know is playing basketball in the alley, back in the alley with a crate. Like,
Mhm.
what I know is experiences of growing up in Inglewood and then different other spaces and learn about that. And so, um, what what it does for you is it makes you realize how much work is left for those who really want to be improved. And I believe that there are a lot of people who are genuine about their interest in learning and growing and developing and understanding other people's spaces and realizing what it takes. And it's going to take, like Devenia and Jasmin mentioned, you doing your research first. You asking the right questions to books and to articles and to movies before you ask me, and to understand that, because like they said, we're exhausted, we're really tired. We're tired of having to explain why our lives matter, why things why we have to fight to get to the table. We're tired of doing that, and every day we're reminded that we are not as qualified as somebody, or that we are low on the totem pole every day. I'll give a quick example of just how that resonates. Like, I do decently well for myself. So I live comfortably for my age, and I live in a place that has
We can see in the
a
background.
chef. I live in a place that has a gym on the top floor. And so one of the days I was up there, and I was at the gym, and I came back and I was on the elevator and I was exhausted. I was like, I think I ran a bit too much. And so I was exhausted, and I was just trying to make it back to my apartment. I was just trying to like get down. So I was on the elevator and I was squatting, and I was just like trying to catch my breath, trying to make it to my floor. The elevator stops on the floor, and the lady gets in, and she's an older white lady. She sees me squatting. This is pre-COVID, so we can talk and we don't have to wear masks. She sees me squatting. I try to, acknowledge her presence, but I'm not about to talk. She sees me squatting in the elevator, and we're going down. And I'm in my shorts and a t-shirt and gym shoes. And she says to me, "Finally, I am so glad somebody's going to clean those scuff marks off the floor." And I had no breath to begin with. And I looked at her and I said, "I'm sorry." And she said, "I complained about these scuff marks on the floor for 2 days, and they finally sent somebody to clean it." And I said, "Oh no, ma'am, I'm not the cleaner, I'm not the help. I live here." And
Mm.
she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Um, who are your parents?"
So,
Okay. So
child,
me being a young black
you still
man,
there?
yeah,
Invite
I
me
live above
over.
I live above her. Let's just say that. Me being a black young man, you clearly could not live in this place.
Jesus.
You clearly cannot afford to live here. And if you do, it's because your parents somehow got in here. And so I use all that to say we're not safe even in our own spaces. I'm reminded, unless I'm outside I'm comfortable in my own four walls, but as soon as I walk out of the door, not even the apartment, the condo, when I walk out of my unit, I'm reminded that I'm black. I'm reminded
Facts.
that this space was not designed for me. And so when that happens, it's like, okay. And so I don't want to do that and be reminded at it at the workplace all the time too. And that means that my coworkers, whom I love, um, at my company, and I do appreciate the hard work that they're doing, but it means that if we're serious about making improvements and progressing, you got to do more. We got to act on it. We can't just do lip service. You have to put your money where your mouth is. And so, thankfully, maybe it took a catalyst like this to make it happen. But guys, let's not keep doing this over and over and over again, please.
Right. Oh my gosh. Devin,
Yes,
I know we over time again, but Devin, that just, first of all, that I'm sorry that happened. And I think, at the end of the day, that speaks just to the magnitude of racism that we experience on a consistent basis. To your point, there was two things that happened. I legit had just completed a training on microaggression. So for those of y'all that don't know, I encourage you to Google it. But since I'm a diversity educator, I'll take a second. Those are subtle messages that pretty much send, this signal out that you do not belong. And it's usually happening. It does happen to folks from minoritized spaces, right? So I had just completed a training on this. And I kid you not, I gave an example of me being a fair-skinned Black person and constantly being questioned on my Blackness, right? Or you're not Black enough because you're fair-skinned, or you're not Black enough, you can't see because of my eye color, And so I talked about that in this space. And I kid you not, this person asked me, so are you mixed? We legit just had this conversation. And so I had to say, self, is today the day you gonna read somebody for filth? Or I had to say, self, are you just gonna smile and keep it moving?
And those conversations are real. They're real.
Listen, all you Black folks, people of color, y'all know you got these folks just sitting on your shoulder like, is today, do you have time today? Or do you just want to go with God today? And I chose to go with God today. But that other time that it happened to me where this white woman came up, and I kid y'all not, she touched my hair and asked if it was real. Oh, baby. In front of 100, literally 100, 150 folks, came up to me and was like, oh, your hair is pretty. I said, girl, let me talk to you. Just like that. Girl, let me talk. She had to be like 40s, 50 years old. And I'm a young blood too. So I was like, girl, come here. She's like, did I make a mistake? I'm like, the fact that you had to ask me that tells me that you knew you made a mistake. You don't ever touch nobody hair. They're like a pet to you. Turn red. Just shook it. Don't ever touch me again. Okay. And to add salt to the wound, this lady worked in HR. Oh. So no, I say that to say nobody's exempt, right? Yeah. And so my advice to you is that, as you're evolving into whatever person you become, make sure that you are finding your voice. Okay. Because for me, I look at it this way. As a diversity educator, I give folks a lot of grace because of the work that I do. And I do recognize that there are some folks that are just coming into this type of understanding around racism, and they're still learning some of these things. And so I do offer a little bit more grace, but again, where we are in the world, that grace is very thin. And so I rely very heavily on my champions and allies. I appreciate you all for stepping into the margin so we can take a break, in a sense. But you have to figure out who you are, because you have to be able to amplify your voice. You have to be able to speak on behalf of the culture. Yep. When I talk about issues, when I address the indecencies that happen, when I point out a policy, when I call someone out on their white fragility, when they're shedding those white little tears, I am doing that for the people before me and the people that are right behind me. I'm doing that for my students. I'm doing that for my colleagues. I'm doing that for the allies that still haven't figured out their voice through their privilege to be able to speak out on these issues. And so I absorb whatever challenges that I'll face because of that, but I know to not do that will be just as dangerous. And so, it is tiring. Doing diversity work in 2020 is tiring. And in a lot of ways, it's dangerous, especially as a Black woman. That mental health, that physical health is very real. And so for me, making sure that I am countering these different things that I'm experiencing, I'm educating myself because I'm still learning these things too. I'm surrounding myself around educated folks, Black, beautiful scholars, educated myself around wonderful leaders that are leading in tech and leading in marketing and leading in education. I have to remind myself that we are excellent and we are here because a lot of times these messages are suggesting otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, can I add one thing to that? And I know we have over time.
And then we're gonna
But
wrap it
two,
up.
We're gonna wrap
uh,
it up.
yeah, allies and folks that are here to learn and are in workplaces and saying, hey, I may have been late to the party, but now I fully see and I want to be there. One thing that sets you apart from the folks that we're describing, who we can vehemently see are not you, is how do you perform when we're not around? What are
Mm-hmm.
your conversations in those closed door spaces that we don't have the privilege to be around?
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing when you smile in our face and say, "Hey, I'm with you," but can you share my experience when you're behind closed doors, or when you're
Facts.
talking to your friends who are in your own space and they say something that's off, and you know good and well that it's off? How does how does that show up? What is your response there? Are you willing to be bold enough to say, "No, you're wrong. That's racist. That's wrong. The way you treated that person was wrong. No, I don't agree with you. Yes, I do." Or, will you speak up? Because until you feel that level of uh, uncomfortability is not a word, Devin, but until you feel that
It
That
is
level of
tonight
discomfort.
on this platform. It
discomfort,
is.
You do
that's
It's
the
what you
a
word,
got.
word.
Make it what you
discomfort.
got to make it.
I'm sorry,
Put
it's
it in the
Friday
Urban
night.
It's a
Dictionary.
word
Listen,
tonight.
that
Urban
level,
Dictionary.
until you experience that level of discomfort where you're the one that says, no, that's not okay, because we deal with it daily. I can't tell you how many times where I've had to raise my hand and say, no, yeah, I'm actually the one that you need to ask that question, not the white man that you thought came with me, or not the white man that you thought was the one that ran the models or created the decks. No,
Mm,
I'm leading the meeting, or
Exactly.
this is me. Until you have to deal with that level of discomfort, you know
mm.
I question it. I question, you know your authenticity. I can't talk right now.
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Yeah, we know.
Yes,
We got you. We
We
authenticity.
got you,
got you,
Devin.
sir. We
It's
got you.
We
Friday night,
got
Devin. Give it to me. I question that, and you know I want us to be genuine. If you're not going
Mm-hmm.
to be genuine about it, please go back to where you were. But to the folks that are genuine, we appreciate. We treat you like allies because you are. And there's opportunities for us to continue to build on that relationship, because it's going to take all of us collectively to make that change. And
Exactly.
so we want to see you show up in spaces where we're not allowed or invited yet.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Y'all, this has been wonderful tonight. Um the conversation has, I feel like it's enriched everyone on here. It's enriched me. I like these conversations because I get to sit back a little bit and just let y'all talk, and I just get to take it all in. I get to be with the audience and the people. But let me first and foremost say I appreciate Jasmine, you, Devin, you, Devenia, even though she's not on here, and for allowing the people to really understand what it is to be black in these different spaces. And to those of you who are watching, those of you who may watch this afterwards, this is real. This is real life. This is not just, a conversation or a discussion. This is us allowing for you to have a window into our lives and to really just
Absolutely.
let you all know. And I say that because I really need people to understand. I feel like we live in a world where it is so divided and people can't even fathom that people live a certain way or have to do certain things. And
Hmm.
I hope that what we are saying is waking people up, because some of y'all are asleep. Father God, Jesus. One of my daily prayers is that people just wake up. Not
Yeah,
that you have
yeah.
to agree, not that you have to take down on what it is that you hold dear to your heart as far as morals go, but just be decent enough to say, you know what? I didn't think about it like that. And you're probably right. And let me try to be more understanding and open to that. That's for me. I don't speak for everybody else, but for me, that's a good starting place.
Yes.
Because we have a
Facts.
lot of people that are so closed-minded. So I
Yeah.
thank you all for what you said, because I really believe it's going to open someone's eyes, it's going to open their heart, and hopefully broaden their view on the world. Because my God, we can be a closed-minded people sometimes. But some people in the comments saying they think we need a part three. Like I said, I'm gonna talk with the distinguished guest that we have, and we're gonna see if we're gonna do this. But I like what RJ said. about a Q&A, because part of what we're doing here, we're talking about our experiences, but part of this is, I think this is a place and a space where the questions can be asked by black
Mm-hmm.
people and white people and brown people and every people.
Facts.
Well, you know, it would
And
be interesting too
what?
if we got some of our allies on here too to talk about
Yes,
their
I think that would be good.
experiences.
Exactly,
Maybe they can share
exactly.
some tips to help. Okay.
Yes, yes. And so y'all see how this thing is shaping out. Y'all see how this thing is going. So once again, y'all stay on the lookout. Follow me on social media, RN Poetic. You can find me on all social platforms. And stay tuned, because we're probably gonna do this again, because we're out here to help the people. We're out here to grow. We're out here to edify one another, and we out here to make sure that we all are all right. Because
Facts.
it is a lot going on out here. So thank you to each and every person that tuned in tonight. Please make sure that y'all continue to share even after this is over. Please make sure that you tag someone in the comments. And let's make sure that we just keep this going. Y'all, it's been another Friday night. We've been on here live. I love you all so much. Continue to
Much
stay
love.
safe, continue to stay whole, and have a wonderful weekend. And we praying for a wonderful week next week. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all later.
All right. Bye, y'all.